She kept looking back at Jin-Woo until she was out of the dungeon. Finally, even their shadows disappeared from view. Jin-Woo let out a sigh of relief. He had wanted to keep his secret safe for as long as possible, but now it was out. There were witnesses, so he couldn't deny it anymore. Jin-Woo didn't want to scare Jo-hee, or Mr. Song. Luckily, he could say he acted in self-defense when he fought the B-rank hunter, and no one would question him. Jin-Woo had 2 witnesses who could back him up, but there was a big problem. How could an E-rank hunter like him beat a B-rank hunter? He thought for a moment, and decided that saying he was reawakened would be the best excuse. That way, he could tell the Hunter Association that he had gotten stronger and get retested. Jin-Woo didn't plan on telling them about the strange system or how he leveled up. They wouldn't believe him anyway. He felt weird about getting retested though. Part of him wanted to wait until he got even stronger before doing it. But life doesn't always go as planned. Nothing could stop him now. He couldn't help but wonder what his current rank was. Had his big win over Tessic bumped him up to a high B rank? He felt pretty sure he'd gotten stronger, but those hunters ranked B Tessics were seriously powerful. For now he pushed those thoughts aside. His main goal was to beat the boss and get out of there. Jin-Woo was exploring a D-rank dungeon, but it was filled with weak E-rank goblins. This meant that the strong magic power he sensed probably belonged to the boss of the dungeon. If the boss was really powerful, Jin-Woo might be able to gain enough experience to level up after defeating it. But before he could think about that, he had something important to check on. Jin-Woo focused all his senses and carefully examined every energy signal inside the dungeon. Suddenly he exclaimed, "Found him." He started moving in a specific direction, and as he walked he stumbled upon the bodies of Kim and the others. This was what made high-rank hunters so feared. With just a flick of their wrist, they could take down several weaker hunters in an instant. Jin-Woo's expression turned grim as he walked by the bodies of the fallen hunters. Then he heard a strange noise. Mumph, mumph. It was coming from a prisoner who was struggling to break free nearby. The prisoner's hands and feet were tied up, and his mouth was covered with a gag. The man looked exactly like Tessic had described him before he passed away. Jin-Woo remembered Tessic's last words. "I caught the rapist and tied him up nearby. The victim's dad wanted me to make him suffer, so I was going to save him for last, and make it a slow and painful death." As soon as Tessic said that, he was gone. Now the prisoner's eyes widened when he saw Jin-Woo, and he started struggling even more. Jin-Woo quickly worked to untie the prisoner, who was trying to rush him. Mom! The man muttered. As Jin-Woo got a closer look, he realized it was the same creepy guy who had been bothering Jo-hee earlier. The prisoner's eyes went wide as Jin-Woo removed the gag from his mouth. He took deep breaths and exclaimed, "Huff, huff, huff, that insane Tezakang. He killed everyone. I'm telling you. Where is he?" "Where is he?" someone asked, eyeing Jin-Woo's bloody clothes. "Did he attack you too?" But Jin-Woo didn't answer. He stared straight ahead, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. The boss was that way. The prisoner started talking fast, sounding really worried. "Get me out of here first. We have to get away before Tessic comes back. I'm stuck. This rope has magic on it, and I couldn't break it even if I tried. Do you have anything we can use to cut it?" "Hey, why aren't you talking to me? Can you even hear me?" the prisoner asked, getting frustrated. He was so angry at Jin-Woo, a low-ranking hunter, for ignoring him that he forgot about his own troubles. Jin-Woo's face didn't show any emotion, but he finally spoke up. "The boss is right over there," he said calmly. The prisoner was confused. "What are you talking about?" he asked. Jin-Woo explained, "I think this boss is stronger than usual, so I'm trying to figure out its attack patterns." The prisoner had had enough of Jin-Woo's calm attitude and exploded in anger. Jin-Woo stayed calm and kept talking, even though the other guy was getting really upset. "Let me ask you something," Jin-Woo said. "Do you remember a girl you hurt really badly?" The man looked confused. "What are you talking about? Who is this person?" he asked. He didn't say yes or no. Instead, he wanted to know who Jin-Woo was talking about. Jin-Woo's eyebrow moved slightly, like he was surprised by the man's response. It was clear that this guy had hurt a lot of people, not just one or two. As a hunter, he had the power to do whatever he wanted, and sadly, he used it to harm women. Jin-Woo's anger turned to ice. He stared down at the prisoner with a cold glare. "I've heard enough," he said, his voice firm. The man tried to say something, but Jin-Woo didn't let him. He gagged him, shutting him up before he could utter another word. Jin-Woo grabbed one of the prisoner's ankles and started walking calmly towards the boss's lair. The convict let out muffled screams, muff, 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 as he was dragged along. His eyes bulged out of his head, but Jin-Woo didn't flinch. He kept pulling the prisoner until they reached the lair. The convict continued to struggle and scream, muff, muff, but it didn't do him any good. Inside the lair, a group of hobgoblins were hanging around. These creatures were notorious for their love of human entrails, and they got them from living people. The prisoner's screams grew more frantic. Muff, muff, as he realized what Jin-Woo had planned for him. Jin-Woo's eyes widened in horror as he stared at the group of hobgoblins. He let out a loud scream and shook his head. Suddenly his pants got stained with a weird yellow liquid. Whoa! Jin-Woo took a deep breath, then grabbed the convict and threw him right at the hobgoblins. The convict yelled "Mamef" as he flew through the air. The hobgoblins went crazy, shrieking "Kiki, Kiki, Kiki." They caught the convict's scent and pounced, tearing into his leather clothes with their sharp claws. The convict's eyes turned bright red as he struggled, and the veins in them started to pop. "Mamuf," he screamed, but it was too late. The hobgoblins were already ripping him apart. Jin-Woo's eyes scanned the room, his face twisted in a scowl. The hobgoblins were still chomping away, even though their victim had passed out. Jin-Woo shuddered at the thought of being eaten alive by those disgusting creatures. He was on a mission to find the boss, and he wasn't going to let anything get in his way. Suddenly, he spotted it. A huge hobgoblin sitting proudly in the corner, looking like the king of the dungeon. Its minions were too busy eating to notice Jin-Woo sneaking up. It was the perfect moment to strike. Jin-Woo darted forward, zipping past the smaller hobgoblins and appearing right in front of the boss. The big hobgoblin let out a startled "keek" as it tried to jump up, but Jin-Woo was too fast. With a swift swing, he knocked the boss's head clean off its body. The head rolled away with a dull "woot" sound. The room fell silent, except for the sound of the head rolling across the floor. Then a loud ping filled the air. A message appeared, congratulating Jin-Woo on defeating the dungeon master and leveling up. As Jin-Woo caught his breath, he remembered something important. The rune stone. He could have used it to sneak up on the boss with a stealth skill instead of using the poor prisoner as bait. Jin-Woo clicked his tongue in regret as he looked at what was left of the prisoner's body. It was barely recognizable as human anymore. Jin-Woo didn't feel bad about what he had done. The operation was a success, and that's all that mattered. After their leader was gone, the hobgoblins were confused and didn't know what to do. This made it easy for Jin-Woo to handle them. The beasts let out loud "Kiki" cries as they ran away from him, but he quickly caught up and took care of them. When the last one fell, a welcome message popped up. "You have leveled up." Jin-Woo's face lit up with surprise. He had leveled up again. This news put him in a better mood. He wiped the blood off Kasaka's venom fang and started collecting essence stones from the hobgoblins' bodies. Ting! Jin-Woo checked his stats. Here's what he saw. His name is Jin-Woo Sung, and he doesn't have a job yet. He has 114 health points, and no fatigue. Jin-Woo is level 27, and his title is Wolf Assassin. He also has 5T4T8 magic points. Let's look at his strengths. Strength, 72 stamina, 43 agility, 82 intelligence, 39 perception, 69. He has 5 ability points to spend. One cool thing about Jin-Woo is that he takes 20% less damage from physical attacks. Jin-Woo's skills are pretty awesome too. He has a secret passive skill that's already at its maximum level. He also has willpower, which is at level 1. His active skills include dash and murderous intent, both at level 1. As for his equipment, Jin-Woo is wearing the Warden's Collar A. He's getting close to leveling up, just a few more points, until he reaches level 30. He didn't think he'd get much out of dealing with the goblins near the dungeon entrance, but it turned out to be a great adventure. He leveled up not once but twice. The first time was after beating the boss hobgoblin, and the second time was after taking down the rest of the gang. Luckily the toughest ones were all hanging out in the boss's lair. Wait, can you really call that luck? He actually knew which path to take, and how tough the boss's lair would be. Imagine walking into the boss's lair feeling like a total rock star, just because you easily beat up some goblins. That would be a big mistake. Hobgoblins are way tougher than goblins. Sometimes you'll run into a hobgoblin or two in a dungeon filled with goblins, but it's super rare to see a huge group of them all together. That's what makes dungeons so unpredictable and exciting. You never know what's waiting for you around the corner. Imagine you're in a situation that seems super lucky for someone, but it's actually a nightmare for someone else. That's just how life goes sometimes. For hunters like Jin-Woo, the only thing that can really keep them safe is being strong. That's why Jin-Woo wants to be as powerful as possible. Sure, surviving a dungeon is a big deal, but what if a dungeon suddenly breaks open right next to the hospital, where his mom is? Imagine walking down the street, and suddenly running into a magical creature that wants to attack you. That's the kind of danger Jin-Woo faces every day. And it's not just magic beasts he needs to worry about. Hunters can be just as deadly. There are groups that try to keep hunters in line, but they can only do so much. Jin-Woo knows he needs to be strong enough to protect himself. The thing is, there's a limit to how powerful hunters can become. But Jin-Woo is different. He has no limits to his strength, which means he could become incredibly powerful. This gives him a chance to stay safe in a world filled with magic and danger. Jin-Woo was on a roll. As long as he kept leveling up and collecting new items, he could just keep getting stronger. And today he'd stumbled upon an amazing discovery: rune stones. He pulled one out of his pocket, and just like with other special items, a hologram popped up with the details. This stone was called Stealth, and all he had to do to unlock its power was crush it. To most people, the stone would look like an ordinary pebble with strange markings. But to hunters, it was a total game changer. They would do just about anything to get their hands on one. Imagine having a super rare and powerful tool that could change your life. Top-notch hunter could use it to become almost unbeatable, while a less experienced hunter could sell it for a ton of money to someone who really needs it. Let's say you have a special stone called a rune stone with an amazing skill like Stealth. This thing would be worth a fortune. It could easily sell for at least billions of won in official auction. But on the black market, where people are willing to pay any price for powerful items, it could go for even more. So why is it worth more on the black market? Imagine buying something and no one ever knowing about it. No records, no proof. It's like having a superpower that no one else knows you have. That's what Taesik had with his secret skill, Stealth. If Jin-Woo hadn't been so perceptive, he would have been in big trouble. He would have been basically turning his back on Taesik, making himself an easy target. Luckily, Jin-Woo's sharp instincts saved him from a potentially bad situation. Jin-Woo got goosebumps just thinking about it. Selling was not an option. He could make money anytime he wanted, but that wasn't the point right now. What mattered most was getting stronger, and fast. Having a rare skill like Stealth was a total game changer. Jin-Woo couldn't wrap his head around how valuable one small pebble could be. It was worth as much as a few houses, or even entire buildings. He did something he never thought he'd do, and it was a moment that would change everything. As he poured some of his power into his grip, the runestone crumbled easily. Crock. The red light that seeped out of the broken stone's cracks began to wrap around him. It was like he was getting a special kind of healing magic. The weird thing was that the light was red, not blue like usual. But it didn't feel bad at all. In fact, it felt pretty good. A weird red glow swirled around Jin-Woo, then went up his nose and into his lungs. It was like a strange energy filled him up. Suddenly he heard the familiar ping sound of a notification. Ping. A message popped up. You learned skill, Stealth. You may now use skill, Stealth. Yes, Jin-Woo was thrilled to have gotten the skill. He had been a bit worried since it was his first time using a runestone to learn something new, but it turned out to be quick and easy. Can I really use Stealth now? Jin-Woo's heart started racing with excitement. He had just learned a rare skill. People always say that trying something is better than just reading about it. So Jin-Woo decided to give Stealth a try right away. As soon as he thought the word Stealth, his body began to fade away. Jin-Woo suddenly vanished into thin air. He was completely invisible from head to toe. It was a weird feeling not being able to see his own hand when he held it right in front of his face. He wondered what would happen if he tried something. So he called up his trusty dagger. As soon as he did, he felt something solid in his grip. It was strange. He couldn't see the dagger, but he could feel its shape and weight. This made sense to him. The special power of Stealth worked with Kasaka's venom fang, just like it had with Tasek's knife. The knife was totally ordinary, nothing special about it. But then a question came up. What else could the Stealth skill be used for? To find out, he picked up a rock from the ground. Instantly it vanished into thin air. Could anyone do this cool trick? He decided to try something else and put his hand on the shoulder of a dead hobgoblin. But to his surprise, nothing happened. It seemed like there were limits to what the Stealth skill could do. Jin-Woo was thrilled to see that his stealth skill was actually working. It made the clothes he wore and objects he held invisible. But just as he was getting excited, a message popped up. Stealth was deactivated, due to a lack of mana. Jin-Woo's eyes widened in surprise. What? He exclaimed. His stealth skill had stopped working all of a sudden. He couldn't believe it had drained all his mana in just a few seconds. Jin-Woo quickly checked the details of his skills to figure out what was going on. He had been experimenting with stealth by moving around and trying to stay hidden. Here's what he saw. He had a passive skill that was still unknown, but it was already at its maximum level. His willpower was at level 1. As for his active skills, he had dash at level 1, murderous intent at level 1, and stealth at level 1. Jin-Woo really wanted to know more about his stealth skill. What made it stop working so suddenly? A new message popped up in front of Jin-Woo. It was about a skill called stealth, which would make him invisible for a while. The catch was that it needed 200 mana to start, and then 10 more mana every second to keep working. Jin-Woo's eyes widened as he thought about how fast his mana had disappeared. He looked at his mana gauge, and gasped. It was almost empty. He only had 7 mana left out of a maximum of around 555. He sighed, realizing why his mana had run out so quickly. The stealth skill was pretty cool, but it only lasted for about 35 seconds. If Jin-Woo used his magic for something else, during that time, the stealth skill would cut off early. Now he got why Tasik only used stealth for a few seconds. He didn't have enough magic power to keep it going longer. It all made sense now. If you wanted to stay hidden with stealth, you had to be careful not to use up your magic on something else. Imagine being a top-notch hunter like Tasik. It's tough enough for him, so what chance does a lower-ranked hunter have? The problem is mana, he thought. He had put points into every area except intelligence, but his mana never went up. To boost his mana, he'd have to focus on intelligence, but should he really do that? It seemed like a waste to spend points on something that wouldn't help him fight better, just so he could use a skill for a bit longer. Compared to other stats like strength, stamina, agility and perception, intelligence didn't seem as important. He had seen for himself how much of a difference these upgrades made. As his stats improved, he got noticeably stronger. But when his intelligence stat went up, he didn't really feel any different. It was weird, because his intelligence was already 4 times higher than it was when he started out. The only thing he could tell had changed was that he had more mana, or magic energy, to work with. It just didn't feel worth it to spend his points on that. It seemed like a waste of time and effort. When he leveled up, he could see the changes in his body's stronger muscles, sharper senses. That's what mattered. So, he decided to keep leveling up until he had enough mana. Then, he'd use his ability points to boost his other stats. Speaking of ability points, he still had 5 left over from that urgent quest he completed. Jin-Woo had a big decision to make. He thought about using his special points to boost his intelligence. But in the end, he chose to add 3 points to his strength, and 2 points to his stamina. Now his stats looked like this. Strength, 75 stamina, 45 agility, 82 intelligence, 39 perception, 69. He had used up all his available points. With his new setup, he got a 20% decrease in physical damage. Jin-Woo liked that his numbers were neat and tidy. With multiples of 5, he couldn't help but smile. But his satisfaction was short-lived. Mole. The ground started shaking again, and the tremors were getting stronger by the minute. Jin-Woo couldn't ignore them anymore. Had an hour really passed already? Time was running out, and he knew he had to act fast. Jin-Woo shut down the stat screen and took a deep breath. He had waited until the last minute to leave, but now it was time to go, or he'd be trapped forever. He glanced around the boss's lair one more time before making his exit. He had already grabbed the precious essence stones, so he knew he wasn't forgetting anything important. With a sense of relief, Jin-Woo sprinted towards the entrance. Suddenly the dungeon started shaking violently, the ground rumbling loudly. Mumble. It was like the dungeon itself was warning him to get out before it was too late. Jin-Woo's timing was perfect, and he made a run for it, just in time. The surveillance team arrived just in time to see Jin-Woo walking out of the gate. Their eyes went wide with surprise. "Sir, are there any other survivors?" one of them asked nervously. Jin-Woo shook his head. "No." The team members looked at each other, their faces serious and worried. 9 people had entered, but only 3 made it out alive. This was a total disaster. As employees of the association, they were in a tough spot. There had been several incidents in this area, and now this. They really wanted to keep searching for more survivors, but it was too late. The gate had already closed, and there was no way to go back in. Jin-Woo had waited inside until the gate was almost closed. He didn't want anyone to know that some people had survived. The only proof that anyone had made it out alive was what 3 survivors said happened. An employee who was already at the scene looked upset as she spoke up. "We just got a call from the president of Chugong Industries," she said. He confessed to something on the phone. Jin-Woo took a step forward, his eyes fixed on something. The president of Chugong Industries was connected to a pretty shocking story. His daughter had been hurt by one of the prisoners, and he wanted revenge. So he hired Taesik Kang to take care of the offender, permanently. When Taesik got the job done, the president came clean about everything. But here's the thing, someone else was claiming to be the real killer. The police were hot on the president's trail, and some important people from an association showed up too. Jin-Woo, who had been quiet until then, suddenly spoke up with a question. "Then there's no problem, is there?" the employee said, looking like she was on the spot. Jin-Woo had asked a simple question, but it seemed to make her nervous. "Yes, that's right," she replied quickly. It was true. They had proof that Taesik was guilty, and the 3 hunters had fought him to survive. But the employees still looked worried about something. "Who killed Taesik Kang, a B-rank hunter?" she asked. Looking concerned, the surveillance team members didn't know the whole story yet. They had just arrived from headquarters, which was pretty far away. Luckily they made it just before the gate closed, and rushed to the scene as soon as they got the news. The members of the surveillance team looked exhausted, like they hadn't slept in days. Jin-Woo's mind wandered to his friend Jin-Woo. Before he made his confession, he felt a pang of sadness, thinking that he might not be able to team up with Jin-Woo on any future raids. If Jin-Woo went along with the story that he had reawakened, and gotten his rank reevaluated, it would mean leaving Jin-Woo to fight alone. Jin-Woo was in a tough spot. He needed someone with amazing skills but not too high of a rank. If Jin-Woo's rank went up, all his plans would be ruined. But instead of feeling bad about it, Jin-Woo just wanted to laugh at the thought of Jin-Woo's grumpy face. He was going to lose that sweet building he was supposed to get as a reward, but oh well. Just as Jin-Woo was about to spill the beans, a voice spoke up. "I did it." Jin-Woo turned to see who said it, and his eyes landed on Joo-hee, who looked shocked as she stared at Ji-Yoo. "Mr. Song." She trailed off. Before Jin-Woo could ask what was going on, Ji-Yoo took a step forward. "I'm the one who killed Taesik Kang," he announced. The employee's face was a picture of shock and disbelief. She looked shocked, and it was no wonder why. Ji-Yoo Song, a hunter missing his left arm, was only a C-rank hunter. But Taesik Kang, the guy he had just beaten, was a B-rank hunter. A really high rank. Being a high-rank hunter meant having powers that were almost unbelievable. Everyone knew that the difference between a B rank and a C rank was huge, way bigger than the difference between a C rank and a D rank. Ji-Yoo just laughed and said, "You really think I defeated Hunter Taesik Kang?" He seemed pretty amused by her reaction.